All righty. Thank you guys for attending today's webinar. We're going to hear from our UNL Dietetic Intern, Bryce Heiser. So he's currently earning his hours to become a registered dietitian, which is why he's here with us at Duncan. This is actually his last week, but he's going to be talking today about some digestive wellness, learning a little bit more about how to eat for a healthy gut. And so I will let him take it away from here.
Thanks, Peyton. As Peyton said, I've been in grad school for a little over a year, and I graduate in December. Looking into potentially working in a clinical setting after I graduate, and probably staying in Nebraska. I was born and raised in Nebraska, so I plan on living my life here. And without further ado, we'll get started talking about digestive wellness and how we can eat for a healthy gut. So looking at the agenda today, we'll first start with the importance of digestive health, look into a brief component of the digestive system, look into the gut microbiome, foods that promote gut health, some lifestyle factors that may influence digestive wellness, a little literature review that goes over the Mediterranean diet, and we'll close it out with kind of a map of all the key points and how they're connected, and just concluding thoughts. And then I'll take any questions at the end if you guys haven't. Starting with the importance of digestive health. First and foremost, it brings nutrients to your body, which can be used to have energy for your daily tasks, working out, and also just to build and repair cells. And it also allows us to maintain normal bowel movements and avoid unwanted and unpleasant and uncomfortable symptoms. I'm sure many people have experienced this and know what I'm talking about. And most importantly, it allows us to maintain routine activities that we enjoy and don't have to miss out on things. And then if you look to the right here, this is just kind of an interesting fact that there's a little over 40 trillion estimated microbial cells, so bacterial cells in the body, and it outnumbers the amount of like human red blood cells we have, which is about 30 trillion. So just based off those numbers, it goes to show how influential your gut health can be to your body. Also, according to the American Gastroenterological Association, and this was updated in 2022, 40% of Americans stopped their routine activities in the past year due to bowel discomfort. So this could be just social gatherings, going out, working, and it can have a really big impact on your social life. And a survey included in this review showed that only 1 in 3 Americans would only discuss bowel symptoms if their doctor brought it up first. So it can be kind of a really sacred and private thing for people. And that just goes to show how important it is to have that, because if it's not being brought up to your doctor, many people can suffer and not really get the help they need to alleviate some of their symptoms related to digestive discomfort. Now looking into some brief components of the digestive system. We start off with, well, it should go up higher, but start up with the mouth is where digestion first starts to take place. When you chew food, you're already mechanically breaking it down, but then it travels down through the esophagus into the stomach, where the acid in the stomach starts the digestive process and breaking down some of the food, and it enters the small intestine through the pylorus. And the first part of the small intestine is the shortest part. It's called the duodenum, and that is connected to the pancreas and the gallbladder, where the pancreatic enzymes can get into the small intestine and bile from the gallbladder, which is produced by the liver, can enter there, and that starts breaking down nutrients. And then following the duodenum, it turns into the jejunum, so like the middle part of the small intestine. And that's where predominantly amino acids and lipids and starches and sugars are broken down and absorbed. And then at the tail end of the small intestine is called the ileum. And that is where the final absorption of nutrients happens. And predominantly, one of the important factors there is vitamin B12, where that's predominantly absorbed at. And then after that, the food travels into the colon or large intestine, where predominantly the salts that you have consumed throughout the day and the water is absorbed to create fecal matter, where it is then excreted through the anal canal and rectum. Looking now into the gut microbiome, it is a highly complex and functionally stable community of bacteria, and it can be influenced mostly at birth to kind of set you up for what that community of bacteria is going to look like. So some of the factors at birth that can influence this is if you have a cesarean procedure or a natural birth, breastfed babies versus formula-fed babies, and it's here or there. It just depends if it can be. I mean, you can have hybrid. I mean, breastfed and formula-fed, predominantly only breastfed, and also the use of antibiotics. I would say that would be influential for during the pregnancy. And the gut microbiome plays an important role in nutrient absorption, hormone regulation, immunity, and immune function, and the intestinal barrier function. So how the gut microbiome and the bacteria can be influenced by dietary components. This is just an example of some of the more well-known and well-researched food components that can influence it, starting with probiotics. Some of you may or may not have heard of what a probiotic is before, but it's live microorganisms introduced to what you already have, so pre-existing gut bacteria. So I have an example up here is yogurt. Greek or just regular yogurt has live cultures of bacteria within them. Next is prebiotics. This is maybe a less well-known food component, but they're substrates that are fermentable by the gut bacteria. So basically what that means is it's a form of a fiber, but the fiber has to be fermentable. So basically what it means is the gut bacteria can feed on it and then produce what I will talk about later called short chain fatty acids, which can bring about health benefits for us when we consume prebiotic foods. And I just have a supplement. I'll go into prebiotics later, but I just have an example of a supplement. Inulin is a type of prebiotic, and it comes in a powder that you can take. And symbiotics is basically just simply put, like a mixture of these two. So it's a mixture of the pro and prebiotic that can be utilized. And one could argue that this may be more advantageous if you were looking into improving your gut health, just because you're introducing potentially new live microorganisms into your gut. And additionally, you're giving your gut bacteria food to feed to produce the short chain fatty acids to confer some health benefits. Here I have an example of some foods to improve your gut health, starting with fortified foods. Granola bars can be fortified with prebiotic. It depends. So this is where the nutrition label comes into play. So inulin, as you can see in the next with the prebiotic supplement, inulin is mostly what you're going to find in a granola bar, and it may be listed as chicory root extract, but those are found in granola bars. Obviously, a recommendation I would always say with granola bars is, look at that nutrition label and choose the ones lower in added sugar. Also, cereals, same thing, can be fortified with prebiotic. And this was interesting to me and new. I wasn't aware that some yogurts can be fortified with prebiotics too. So that Oikos 000 would act as a symbiotic because it's introducing the live cultures of bacteria to your gut, and additionally giving you a prebiotic to feed your gut bacteria as well. Next, moving to supplements. So I have listed the FOS, GOS, and inulin. So FOS and GOS are just different types of basically fibers. And FOS is fructooligosaccharides and GOS is galacto-oligosaccharides. I just put that there for the sake of if you do try to look at nutrition labels or do want to do that, that's something you can look for. Or if you're looking into supplements. Also, resistant starch or maltodextrin. So you might see some supplements that are made with like corn fiber. So that would count. I know we sampled this in my class just with water. It tastes fine and it dissolves in water, so you can't really tell it's there, but it can be used as a supplement for prebiotics, but usually one serving, which is, like a rough tablespoon, will also provide, it varies, but usually about 5 to 10 grams of fiber per serving. So it can also just contribute to your daily fiber intake, but take this slowly because we all know with fiber, it can produce some GI symptoms such as bloating or gas. And additionally, infant formula can have prebiotics in them as well. And fermented foods are a form of a probiotic foods because the fermentation process has happened. So we have the live cultures in there. So sauerkraut, if you guys are familiar with that. Kimchi may or may not be familiar with, but it's a fermented cabbage. It's a Korean food. Kombucha, many different brands. I just use this one as an example. Health-Ade has live cultures. Kefir, it's like a yogurt milk. Will have the live cultures and obviously yogurt. And then just whole food products is choosing fibrous fruits and veggies. So I have bananas. Those are options for having prebiotic food, fibers in them. But the basis of just choosing fibrous fruits and veggies is that when you have a variety of colors, you will be able to get closer to your fiber goals each day. And additionally, you will be getting some vegetable foods that have prebiotics in them. Specifically for the prebiotic rich veggies, if you wanted to target prebiotics, garlic, leeks, asparagus, and onions are richer in prebiotics than others. And then lastly, legumes. So green peas, beans, those are types of legumes that will provide you fiber as well. So now I want to talk about the short chain fatty acids that I mentioned earlier. So the metabolic byproducts of fermentable fibers or the prebiotics. So look on the left, just a quick example of how it happens. So prebiotic rich foods are consumed and the favorable gut bacteria found in the large and small intestines feeds on that and produces the short chain fatty acids. So the ones that are found in the body are called butyrate, acetate, and propionate. and they have been shown in research to potentially block inflammation, leaky gut, and dysbiosis. Dysbiosis is just basically a imbalance of the bacteria in your body to where maybe the less favorable bacteria is taking over. So this is a brief literature review I wanted to go over of the Mediterranean diet. So how can the diet impact the gut health? So as we talked about, the production of the beneficial metabolites with the short chain fatty acids is an area of interest in diets such as the Mediterranean diet. And it can also potentially limit the production of potential pathogens. So one was called trimethylamine, which can be associated with maybe more like processed foods and has been linked to cancer with some cross-sectional studies. So with the Mediterranean diet, I found a review that looked at multiple GI-related diseases and states. So irritable bowel disease, irritable bowel syndrome, colorectal cancer, etc. And then they also paired these up with the Mediterranean diet, Paleolithic diet, and then just the traditional Western diet. So looking into the Mediterranean diet, it's proposed as a therapeutic approach for the prevention of multiple diseases, just because the research has been, or there has been research done that has looked through multiple diseases in hand with the Mediterranean diet, and it is shown to improve prognosis, parameters, markers of disease, markers of inflammation, etc. So specifically in this review that I looked over, it was a meta-analysis, and it included 123 healthy subjects that followed a Mediterranean diet. And it showed that their beneficial bacteria shifted to an increased number, and the pro-inflammatory bacteria, or the bad bacteria, was reduced. And further evidence, the pro-inflammatory bacteria was shown obviously increased in patients from other studies with IBD and colorectal cancer. So potentially for those patients following a Mediterranean diet could shift the bacteria potentially to a more favorable state. And it was suggested to be possibly protective against colorectal cancer risk. So what does a Mediterranean diet look like? The basis is to eat fresh fruits and vegetables, three plus servings a day of both. Some pointers: have one serving of a veggie per meal, and have fruits with snacks. Additionally, a big one is nuts, beans, and whole grains. So at least 3 servings per week of nuts and beans, and 3 to 6 servings a day for whole grains. Also, lean meat sources, fish and seafood. It's kind of differing on just depending where you look into for the Mediterranean diet, but I wanted to add lean meat sources just because, we're in Nebraska and sometimes salmon is hard to come by because we're landlocked. Obviously, I'm going to advocate to eat salmon because it's a good source of omega-3 fatty acids. Even just whitefish as well. It's a lean protein, but it doesn't go against choosing the leaner cuts of even beef, or just choosing leaner meats like chicken. But fish recommendation is to have 3 servings per week. Those servings can be the same as like the poultry at 3 to 4 ounces per serving. And then poultry is recommended to have 3 to 4 ounces per day, so about a serving per day. This isn't something that has to be religious to a T. It's just recommendations of how you can build it. Cooking oils: olive, canola, and seed oils, 1 to 4 tablespoons a day, which you could spread out throughout your cooking. And this is just to more so put this in place of cooking with butter or margarine. Dairy recommendations are to have 1 to 2 servings per day. This could be throughout the yogurt or milk or cheeses. Cheeses can be paired with anything in a snack. And then herbs and spices, they're highly recommended. There's no really limit on them, but just to experiment with your meals because it can add a lot of flavor and bring some excitement into cooking. So there, I just have like thyme and rosemary and basil, probably some of my favorites to use. And then you could use cayenne pepper or whole peppercorns and crush them up, or just keep them whole, or use like uh, turmeric, because that's one I like to use for cooking rice and stuff, and maybe trying it out a cooking an Indian dish. Red wine. So there's been research that has showed that there can be some potential benefits because of like the antioxidant potentials of red wine. Recommendation is have one serving per day, but this doesn't mean you should start drinking by any means. And then red meat and sweets, the recommendation is to have them less often. So the basis is to have ideally less than 5 ounces of red meat per week. But because we live in Nebraska, I would recommend just maybe choosing the leaner cuts of red meat as a start. And then sweets, they can still be incorporated, but it could be at the end of every week, or 2 times per month to have sweets. So here's the map of the key points, kind of what we've went over so far. I think I skipped a slide actually. Yeah, I wanted just to touch on this because I looked at exercise and I've thought back, and I think I double clicked on accident. But here's the lifestyle factors for digestive wellness. Some of the research I've looked into, with exercise being one, to where the article that I read showed that active individuals may be more likely to be following a healthy lifestyle. So that has some influence on it as well, which can positively impact the gut bacteria. And that growth may be influenced by the improved barrier function from the increased production of short-chain fatty acids following exercise. So improved barrier function just means the leaky gut thing. So you'd have less abdominal discomfort, less symptoms, more normal bowel movements, etc. Sleep. The article I found said poor sleep from long working hours, jet lag, or even low exposure to sunlight has been suggested to potentially alter the gut microbiome. So the potential for altered metabolism and utilization of nutrients could increase the risk for weight gain and insulin resistance. So I just think of this as when you're not able to be on your set schedule, so you're not having a consistent sleeping pattern, though that is what can potentially lead to fluctuations in weight, or the development of high blood sugar. And then antibiotic use. This may be more of a well-known thing, but I know personally, I do experience some negative side effects from taking antibiotics. So I would rather follow a healthy diet pattern to potentially lower the chances of me having to use an antibiotic. Obviously, they're good for critical care situations, but antibiotic use can be both beneficial and detrimental to overall health. So like a double-edged sword, basically. But the diversity of bacteria can be decreased and metabolic activity can be altered. So there's selected bacteria can become resistant to antibiotics, and this is what leads to the unpleasant symptoms that we may have all likely experienced before. So now I'll jump back to where I was. So yes, the map of the key points here. So we just talked about how kind of exercise and sleep, the lifestyle factors, can influence, potentially influence our gut health. All of these can interplay with each other. If we are exercising and are taking time to work on our sleep schedule, we may be more likely to follow a healthy diet pattern. Obviously, the Mediterranean diet we covered talked about its benefits and, what that looks like. Following Mediterranean diet, we can likely be eating more prebiotic and probiotic foods. Otherwise, if you don't want to follow Mediterranean diet, you could just pinpoint maybe trying out to factor in some more prebiotic and probiotic foods if you feel like that would be something that would be better for you if you are experiencing digestive problems. But yeah, and then we just highlighted that the justification for this can be because we'll have more production of the beneficial short chain fatty acids and increase favorable gut bacteria by both as the symbiotic. And down here, I didn't touch on this, but this can work in hand with these things and be influenced. Or this area up here with the healthy diet pattern can be influenced by partaking in health screens or visits, reaching out. So, as talked about earlier, 1 in 3 Americans, won't talk about their digestive symptoms unless their doctor brings it up first. So, basically, I'm just here to say, like, if you are, that it's not a good time when you have digestive problems. I've been there. But I can tell you going to the doctor at least, ideally, talking to a dietitian is great, because when I have those symptoms, like, it feels like I can't eat anything because, the symptoms are just bad and I don't want the symptoms to keep happening. But, ideally, speaking to a registered dietitian can help you to, and especially if it's a prolonged thing, they can help you to identify some of the trigger foods that may be sparking your symptoms, and get you on the right path. And that can be through the diet recommendations to improve GI health. So with that, I would thank you all for being here and listening, and I will take any questions that you guys may have.
Any specific questions? You can put them in the chat if you prefer to do that. One thing, Bryce, that I think it'd be important to touch on, and I can like piggyback off this if you need extra assistance with it, but what is your opinion on like probiotic supplements?
Probiotic supplements, okay. So yes, me and Peyton actually just did talk about this the other day, and I can't remember who brought it up, but so with probiotic supplements, you can find them anywhere at any store or like drugstore. I can't remember the one I had, but I get to the point where, like, when I've had digestive problems, like, I want to try anything. So like maybe you might get in the mindset like, okay, like, I've heard of probiotics, they might help. My opinion is, I feel like if that were the case, you probably would have to take them continuously to see any potential benefit. Another thing that I talked about with Peyton is she had a podcast that she actually was specifically talking about pre and probiotics. And there's no guarantee that the probiotic you're taking, you might already have enough of the live microorganisms, live bacteria in your gut already. So if you're introducing the same basically bacteria from the probiotic, you're not really going to get anything out of it. It doesn't go against that there's other benefits to it. But that's why I would recommend maybe eating probiotic foods, because you think of yogurt, like, it's a good source of protein, and you get calcium as well from yogurt. So sticking only to a probiotic supplement wouldn't be something that I would firstly recommend, outside of maybe trying probiotic foods first for a while.
Perfect. It looks like we have another question about the carnivore diet, and if it's okay to do. Someone's been looking into it. What are your thoughts there?
I've looked, I've read a little bit of research into it. It's here or there. Like, I've seen research that patients with put problems with diabetes. They have been on a carnivore diet, and their diabetes markers have improved, so their A1C have dropped. Their blood sugar levels are okay. So if that's something to motivate you to do it, that could be a diet you could do. I know for the sake of like kind of being like a keto diet, yes, your body will adapt differently because you won't be utilizing glucose as much. If you're doing a pretty strict carnivore diet and eating little amounts of carbohydrates, little amounts of fruits, it can be influential for weight loss. My only concern with it is you potentially wouldn't be getting enough fiber in your diet. And we touched on this, fiber is a pretty imperative thing for healthy bowel movements that feel nice and are pleasant. So that would be my recommendation for that. But always, as always, take that up with your healthcare provider, and take that up, if you have a dietitian to speak with, to kind of see what your best options are for.
Yeah, we get a lot of questions about specific diets, and I think just taking a step back and thinking of the perspective of, if I'm doing this diet, am I able to get all the nutrients that I can from the foods that I'm eating, and can I do this for the rest of my life? I think is a big one, because we don't really want to jump into a diet that maybe we're only going to do for, a month, unless it's, for example, like maybe we're looking at a low FODMAP diet where we're trying to figure out what some of those trigger foods are. If you're having specific digestive issues, that's kind of a temporary thing, right? When we look at specific diets, I know paleo got brought up, carnivore, there's a lot of diets out there. If it's something that you would like to try and you're really passionate about it, work with a dietitian to make sure that you're able to get those nutrients. Just make sure that it's not something that, okay, I'm going to try it for a little bit, and then I'm going to try something else, and I'm going to try something else, because your body is going to probably have an issue with some of that. We want to make sure that we're able to give our body the nutrients that they need while also maintaining a healthy and normal lifestyle. So if you're not able, if you're like, wow, I don't think I can eat like this for the next 30 years, I would maybe encourage you to try something that is more doable for you. Another question, this is a good one. So I can't do dairy or anything like that. I take a probiotic pill daily. Is this wrong? And is there another option?
No, that's definitely not wrong. It just, like we talked about earlier, like there's a potential that, the probiotic that you're taking, I remember the one I took was like Culturelle, but the probiotic you're taking may have the potential to, your gut your gut bacteria might already be plentiful for the one you're taking, the bacteria in the probiotic. So it's definitely not wrong. You still may be introducing beneficial bacteria to your gut microbiome. As far as another option goes, fermented foods, and it doesn't have to be dairy. So, like I put the kimchi. I know not everyone likes it. It looks funky. It kind of smells funky, but that's fermented. Kombucha is another one. If you can tolerate it, if you can like it, that's another way to get probiotics in. The sauerkraut, I personally don't like it, but some people do. Also, sourdough bread. It's here or there because sometimes the cooking process will kill off most of that bacteria, but it is a fermented food, and because it is fermented, people can potentially tolerate it more than just normal bread.
Perfect. Couple more questions. One is about, and I'll have you speak to this just a little bit, Bryce, but is following a paleo diet long-term healthy?
I would say generally probably yes. I just know that in that the meta-analysis that I looked through, they talked about the Mediterranean diet and also the Paleolithic diet, and I looked into like the types of bacteria. And, the Mediterranean diet and the Paleolithic diet were very close in basically what they were doing to the gut microbiome. So I would say yes. And if it's something you can do, just kind of what Peyton was saying, like if it's something you can follow long term and you feel good, um, I would recommend it. As a dietetic student, I've worked alongside a lot of dietitians, and we do talk about and recommend, people to increase their intake of beans and stuff. And I know that's not one thing that's on the paleo diet as well as grains. Um, I just, if you're eating enough fruit and vegetables, you can, fibrous vegetables, you can potentially be getting enough fiber in your diet. So I would say generally, yes, a paleo diet has been shown and in research to be a healthy form of a dietary pattern.
Okay, and then last question I see is, do you know what apple cider vinegar on a daily basis will do for me? Would it be good or bad for my gut health? And do you have a good resource for clean eating?
I haven't looked into too much research on apple cider vinegar. I know it's kind of a hot topic. Um, from my experience, only I would say if you don't have reflux problems, if you don't have gastroesophageal reflux disease, you can tolerate taking apple cider vinegar. If you don't have pain, symptoms, cramping after taking it, I don't think it's something that would be bad for you. I cook with a variety of different vinegars, so and I would say I feel pretty good on a daily basis. So I wouldn't say it would be bad. I would just say listen to your body if you're having symptoms, especially if you're having reflux. That could be something. A good resource for eating clean, I would say you could work with Peyton. She has a lot of software and that she can use to get you on that path, and really good software to uh, look into kind of meal patterns that could be more clean for you for the sake of that. But Peyton would be probably the best resource for that.
Cool. And just to add to the apple cider vinegar daily, I would just be careful on how you're utilizing that. So like Bryce said, cooking with it, perfect. If you're adding it to a salad or if you're adding it to a meal, that's probably the best way to do it. If you're talking about when people wake up in the morning and just take like a shot of apple cider vinegar, that can be kind of irritating, which is why he mentioned some of those like reflux issues and things like that. It can also be a little bit dangerous for like your teeth and just your mouth in general. So I would just recommend if you want to include apple cider vinegar to include it in some of those recipes. That's going to be the best way. So it just doesn't cause any irritation, because that is something that we can see from that and it's not very comfortable. So, but I think Bryce was right in all of that. So any other questions? These were really great questions. Thanks for asking. So Bryce
For
could answer.
sorry, probiotics. What amount of cultures is the right amount? Is there a right amount of, like, I have one for my kids that's like 5 billion CFUs. Is that I don't know anything about them really. So, yeah, what's the right amount?
Yeah, so I mean, CFUs is just like colony forming units. So um, as far as that goes, like I think most probiotics and even yogurt, you're gonna get that sort of numbers for CFUs. I just know for like yogurts in general, and this isn't for probiotic supplements, but I know for like yogurts in general, there's like 4 main uh, cultures that are utilized, because the way yogurt is made is you introduce the cultures to the milk, basically, and that's how it's made. It feeds on it and makes the yogurt. So for the sake of that, I would say that number is okay. I don't know if Peyton has anything else to weigh in on with that.
I don't have a specific, I just don't think I know knowledge base wise what that number would be. Will you send your first and last name in the chat? I can actually look into that and get that information back to you. I just have your employee code. But yeah, I just think like Bryce said, a lot of these items are going to have like trillions of, you know, bacteria or live organisms or things like that. And it's really just the point that he made of, we don't know without doing large analyses of our own personal bodies what strands we have in our gut and what we don't have. So sometimes when we use probiotic supplements, they may or may not have additional bacteria than what we already have. So this is where I make a conversation about just supplements in general, where it might not harm you, but you might not be getting like a ton of benefit while you're paying probably a pretty penny for it. That's why the incorporation of whole foods is good. Obviously with kiddos, sometimes that's hard. Sometimes it's hard with us as adults, right? So I don't think it hurts to do a probiotic as long as they're not having any symptoms, but really work on those foods too to help with that. But yeah, I think in general, it's just kind of a hit or a miss, especially if you want to take a probiotic, see if you're having any symptoms with it. If you are, just try a different one. Sometimes it's a trial and error piece with that too. But I can look into that a little bit more as well. Any additional last minute questions? All righty. I think that's it. Okay, well, thank you guys all for joining. Thank you, Bryce, for giving us a great presentation. This will be, again, recorded and uploaded to our YouTube channel. So if you guys forget something and want to go back and listen, you can absolutely do that. I'll send the information out probably within the next day or two. So thanks again, and we'll hopefully see you on the next one.
Thanks, guys.